In this video, I'm going to show you how to create floating spheres similar to these using Photoshop. Your final project should have 4 spheres with different patterns, and they should all have drop shadows. First of all, go to File, New to create a new document. Choose Photo 5x7. You can title it Floating Spheres and put your name on it. And the orientation should be vertical instead of horizontal, and double check that Artboards is not checked, and then click Create. So in my blank document, the first thing that I'm going to do is go over here to the Layers panel and go down to the bottom and click the Create New Layer button so that my sphere is on its own separate layer. Now I'm going to go over to my toolbox and choose the Marquee tools and choose Elliptical. To make a circle, hold down Shift on the keyboard to constrain the Marquee selection. So there is my selection. I already have my swatches open here on the side. If you need to open yours, go to Window, Swatches. So you should choose 3 values. You need a light, a medium, and a dark. I think for my first sphere, I'm going to choose, how about this medium blue right here? And you can use a tool of your choice to fill it. I'll use the paint bucket tool, which is grouped together with the gradient tool. So there's the paint bucket, and I'll click inside of this, and now I have a medium blue color. Next, I'm going to get the paintbrush tool. Make sure you don't confuse it with the history brush tool. So with the paintbrush tool selected, I'm going to double check that I have the soft round brush selected and that the hardness is set to 0%. Hit Enter to make that menu go away. Now, using my bracket keys next to P on the keyboard, I'm going to make that fairly large. Now I will choose a light blue, maybe this one right here, and go ahead and click that right in the middle to make a highlight. And you can click it a couple of times if you want to, but don't be too heavy-handed. So that looks pretty good. That's my highlight. So now I'm going to use my bracket keys and make the brush a little bit smaller and get a dark blue. I'll try this. And I'm just going to brush this right around the edge. There we go. So now my sphere went from being a flat circle with no 3D qualities to something that is starting to look pretty 3D. Now over here in the Layers panel, I'm going to click the FX button down here at the bottom and choose Drop Shadow. Once I have my options window open, I can move any of these sliders around to change the effects, but I can also just click and drag right on the shadow and drag it out to where I want it to be. So I think that looks pretty good there. And I like a nice soft shadow rather than a hard edge shadow, so I always move this over so it's a little fuzzy. And I'll click OK. So next thing that I'm going to do is go to the internet and find a nice pattern. 2 searches. So one says origami paper and one says scrapbooking paper. So those are 2 good sources of images. So let's see. I'll try, ooh, that's a pretty pattern right there. So let me see. It might be a little small, but I'm going to go ahead and try it anyway. So I'll right click on this and go to Copy, go back to Photoshop and go to Edit, Paste. There we go. That is pretty darn small. So to make that larger, I will use the selection tool here and make sure that Show Transform Controls checkbox has a check in it, and then I'll hold down Shift and drag this larger. Now I'm taking a chance that it will distort the quality of this, but it looks okay. It looks pretty acceptable. Sometimes when you take a small image and you enlarge it too much, it does not look very good. So now what I need to do is make this pattern go inside my sphere. To do that, over here in the Layers panel, I simply need to hold down the Alt key and hover the cursor between the two layers until I get the square with the little down arrow. Then click one time, and that makes the pattern go inside the sphere. It's called a clipping mask. Now the next thing that I need to do is select this. There's a really easy way. Simply hold down Control on the keyboard and click the layer that has the sphere on this little icon right here. You'll notice that it has the hand with the square with the little selection on it. So when I click that, it actually selects the object. Now I will go to Filter, Distort, and Spherize. And I will make sure that the Spherize is all the way over to the right, 100%, and you'll see what it's going to do from this diagram. So it's going to stretch the middle of the pattern and make it kind of scrunched together on the edges, so it will look like the pattern is projecting out in space. And then I will click OK. There we go. So over here in the Layers panel, the final step that I need to do is change the blend modes. So I will click this little blend modes menu right here, and I'll start with the first one, Dissolve, and then I'll just go through them one at a time until I find one that I like. So Multiply is looking good. I'll keep that in mind and keep going. You know what? I think I'm just going to stop right there. Linear Burn looks pretty fantastic. So Control D to deselect. Okay, let's try that one more time. Control D to deselect, and that is my finished sphere. So you should follow the same steps to create something that looks like this. Your spheres can overlap. They can be multiple colors. What you want to do is make sure that some of the shading shines through, so we want to see the highlight in the middle and the dark areas on the edge. And be sure to use the Spherize filter to make it look like the pattern is bulging out in the center. And that's it for this project.